Yes, I can have soy. Oh, that's so nice. Sorry to be such a high maintenance kid.
One of the things I wanted to look at was where your moose comes from, you know, at the moment. Because sometimes it can go from 1990 till this morning, and it can change or make itself clear to you as it develops. And I wanted to know if you had written anything with the impact of Oka, Elijah Harper, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Boy, that's something, you know, when I think about the Oka thing, I've not written about that except one piece. I wrote one piece about going down to Montreal a few years after Oka and going out to Ganastaugue and sitting with people there, and then going out to Kahnawake one night and we did a little show there. And it was just a lot of fun because we were traveling in a group, but I remember really clearly two things about it. I remember coming through the Whiskey Gulch, they called it, and there had been, you know, right? You know, they killed an old man.
If you've never seen Alanis Sewell's film, Rocks at Whiskey Gulch, you won't believe it, and it's all true. It all happened. It's documented by Alanis Sewell, Rocks at Whiskey Gulch, and it impacted me so hard. I actually contacted the people in the film, and I brought all of them in the film and Alanis Sewell. You gotta see this film.
Yeah, it's really something. And Whiskey Gulch, rocks and guns at Whiskey Gulch, and yeah.
Gulch, Gulch.
And it's just this little road you got to go through to get there, and we drove through there, and just the feeling of being in a bus with a bunch of Native people going through there and going under the underpass and going, oh, there's still a lot of feeling here about what could happen. It just because some people attacked them from above and killed an old guy, and it's a terrible thing. But that and also just the feeling in the longhouse there, by contrast, the feeling in the longhouse there of just old ability to take it in and keep going. There's a lot of rootedness there because they've had to be. And so I wrote a little piece about that, one little piece, and it's called Coming to Kahnawake, and it's in Fifth World Drum. That's the only thing I've written about Oka, really. Yeah. And other than that, what was the other one? Oka and Elijah Harper. I don't know what to say about that, really. I think a lot of other people have written about what he did and how important that is, and so I haven't written about that.
Sure.
Yeah. Now's the time. Carpe diem, seize the day.
As a performing artist, what is your insight into cultural appropriation and intellectual property?
Oh boy. You saved the best for
Okay,
last.
that's a great question. Boy, oh boy, that's a tricky question, isn't it? When you're dealing with material culture, when you're dealing with material products, right? It's so much clearer and simpler, at least if you don't go into a really deep spiritual level about it, and then it all gets complicated and simple. You know, what belongs where. But when you talk about cultural appropriation, I think that is sometimes a useful thing to talk about as a performer, but I'm always keeping in mind that I'm speaking in English, right? I'm speaking in English, and we're all understanding this trade language of English, even though we all represent a whole bunch of different cultural backgrounds, even in this room. And I think about how cultures grow and change. On one level, the talk about cultural appropriation is necessary because it's talking about there's a problem with just going and ripping people's stuff off. Patenting it for yourself. There's where the trouble is. You patent it for yourself and say, I own that now. And it don't matter who I got it from, right? It's the same level as what happens with food. When you patent food, and they're trying to do that, to patent seeds so farmers cannot grow seeds. That's where it matters. That's the level in which it matters. Intellectually, it's different. You can't stop me from thinking. I can't stop you from thinking. I can't stop you from discovering new ideas and letting them change your mind. And I'd be a fool to try and to shut myself off to influences. For me, that wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real. And I find it really interesting to look at that whole issue. And sometimes I think it becomes a catchphrase for people just wanting to be racists. You know? It's like it comes from a really good place to say, now hold on a minute, if you're taking a community's stuff and then putting a copyright on it for yourself.
Commodifying?
Well, not just the commodifying, but taking it for yourself so that they can't use it. That's a problem. But if you're taking it and paying honor to it and making it part of what your practice is, then you're being an actual human being. Because that is what we do. We travel and we change, and you know, we're here speaking to each other. I remember a lot of this came up in Montreal when I was there the same time. That was a really profound trip. It was 2001. We had a huge big round table about it. Native artists from across Canada, a couple guys from New Zealand. We were all just like, rah, 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 rah. And a woman from Dialogic Theatre, which is the oldest native theatre company in North America. And this woman, she's a great woman. She stands up and she says, now look at here. Gloria de Bossagy, she says, she gets up and she goes, I do theatre. I'm not going to shit on the people who taught me. And you know what? The people who taught me were white. Kind of a person am I who I'll go in their schools and I'll learn their stuff. I'll learn their technology and their staging, and then we'll turn around and shit on them. So when you cross that line where you say we're only native, you're doing the Nazis' work for them. She said this to these people. She said, just shut up with that talk. You've gone too far when you start trying to categorize people into little corrals and say, only these people can say this. Because then you're just doing their work for them, and the they in this question are not people you want to be like. We don't get anything but by trade in terms of creativity. And I suppose it's true in business too. You're going to trade with people, right? You're going to do trade with people. Your ideas are going to change, their ideas are going to change. The tricky thing is where money's on the line. Thank you. Oh, just a second.
Thank you, Evan.
Oh man, that's good. Thank you. Oh my gosh. It's tricky when it becomes money. And I think about like cultural appropriation where it has to do with, the best explanation I heard of it was someone talking about, well look, if some mainstream artist who's got a lot of money comes into a community and they make a bunch of money off of this style of music, and then the people who practice that music don't have access because everyone thinks they've heard it. That's one kind of cultural appropriation. And that's not as problematic. It's tricky because it's difficult because you don't have a level playing field. He's talking about Paul Simon and his Rhythm of the Saints album in particular, right? Going down to Brazil working. But he's working with top Brazilian musicians and within their own field and with their own community and country. And there's millions more people in Brazil than here. So they've got a market. They're doing okay, those guys he's working with. And you can make the case he's bringing that music to people who haven't heard it before. And it's not his fault if the audience is so shallow, they're like, well, I know I don't have to buy Brazilian indigenous music. That's not his fault, you know? But if he's doing like they did with that Lion Sleeps Tonight, right? Where that's an old song. That's one guy's particular song. But some guy swooped in back in, what, the 50s? took that song, copyrighted it, made millions off of it, and now the people there can't sing it? What? And the guy who wrote it doesn't get any royalties and his family's living in poverty? That's when cultural appropriation is bullshit and wrong. And intellectual property has to try and protect people creating stuff. I think the internet makes it problematic too, because everybody wants to put stuff out there, right? Everybody wants to put their stuff out there, and people will take stuff without attribution all the time. I sometimes wonder how we can ever keep a rein on it, and whether the people who do free source stuff are maybe not, more ahead of the curve and going, look, this is my work, use it. It's still going to be my work. You can only do that if you're eating every day. You got a place to live, right?
You remember the word penultimate?
Yeah.
What does it mean? Next to last. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Universal Cree Philosophers, here's the second to last reading that we'll do. We're going to be bringing this seminar and the Universal Cree Philosophers full circle. The second to last reading, and then we'll do one more, and then we're going to do something unlike anything we've ever done to conclude. So, again, in dialogue with your text, Biggish Worm, here's what one of the Universal Cree Philosophers wrote. One word, controversial. One sentence, maybe it's a half-breed or a white man talking. One paragraph, it sounds like someone is mocking traditional Niha ways. It could be a priest, an outsider, who is not spiritual at all. Stream of consciousness, white man. In control, inconspicuous, incognito, mystery, trickster, anarchist, mockery. No one will hunt for this guy. He will melt into the shadows. Injustice. My working definition of racism, using fear, intimidation to control another race, undermining one's ability to be their own person, belittling one's self-esteem and self-worth as it pertains to their race. My working definition of native, poverty-stricken, third-class citizen, hocus pocus, bingo, child abuse, firewater, dropout, domestic violence. My working definition of authentic, someone at peace with their faults, flaws, mistakes, someone able to own their past and not to hold blame, someone in touch with their soul. My working definition of spirit, something that is alive and moving, something warm and vibrant, something you possess when you are whole. And their name for this text, I name this faceless hunter. Racism can come in all forms. It can be silent, subtle, direct, overt. It is like a faceless hunter when it attacks. You won't always see it coming, but you will feel the pierce to your heart when your sense of self-worth is shattered.
Holy crap, that's great writing. If I didn't already have a name, I'd want to be Faceless Hunter. That's so cool. Who wrote that? That's so good. Well, I can see why you want to write a book. So we got a whole room full of writers and entrepreneurs. That's very, very cool.
I invite you to riff on it.
Faceless Hunter. Well, It is exactly that. We each have to find our own soul and figure out who we are before we can really proceed with anything. And yet we have to proceed regardless. You know, you're born going, and you have to keep going until you stop going, and you don't know it while you're doing it. And yeah, so you can't let it stop you from trying out things, and you're going to succeed, and you're going to fail, and you're going to make all kinds of things. And right now, this book, Walking Beige, that I'm working on, it comes in part because Nelson Mandela died. And there was the timing of it. I'm thinking about it for years, right? Who hasn't, right? You're always thinking about these things. And then he died, and there was all that lead up to it, you know, because they knew he was passing, and there's all his top 10 quotes and all of this stuff. And I thought about the South African ambassador story. I thought, oh, I gotta write about that sometime, because that was ridiculous. And then I read a little bit of his second autobiography. I'd read his first one, and in his second one, in the preface to his second autobiography, Conversations with Myself, they explain that, in fact, his first autobiography was not just written by him himself, but it was co-written. He had like a team of people, right? Because he didn't go into jail just some little guy. He was a son of a chief, right? He's raised to chiefdom from a kid. So he was raised to that role. And he had a team with him when he was in prison the whole time who were putting out press releases for him, who were putting out statements. And he was a lawyer too, so he knew how to craft stuff, and he had a team of people working on him, crafting, remembering stuff for him, writing stuff down for him. So that first big autobiography is a collaborative work by his community in a way. And I thought, oh, got it, okay. That's all right then. And then the second one, I happened to read about, he went to an Inuit community, and this is after he got out of prison. He's like, I was so surprised. He was very open about how surprised he was that these guys weren't riding around on kayaks, you know, stabbing polar bears. Because he didn't have any idea. And I thought, okay, here's the icon of racial equality in the modern world. Here's the great hero held up for the world. And he didn't know about our people. Maybe there's some writing we need to do out in the world. Maybe I better get going. If Nelson Mandela didn't know a squat about Native people, geez, and even though you think he would, right, with the whole reserve system, homelands thing there, you know, all the history that we share with South Africa and apartheid, you'd think he'd know, but no, you can't know everything. One person can't know everything. So it just made me really reaffirm for me the fact that as writers we have things to do. Which reminded me of your question before about where's my moose right now. My moose is sitting right there going, oh yeah, you write the stuff that you got to write about. And don't forget that there's billions of us with these different stories. You know, 1 in 5 people in the world is Indigenous. I don't mean Indigenous North American, but 1 in 5 people is statistically, apparently, from a tribal people whose homelands don't show up on the map of the world as nations. And that's usually because of colonial mapping of things, right? Classic example, Iran, Iraq, Turkey. Those 3 places border each other, and they were divided up by the imperial powers of the day. And it was done such that Kurdistan is in all of those countries. So guess what? You have a disgruntled minority in every one of those countries, the Kurds, who are the indigenous people of that area, who are not recognized, and who can be sort of counted on to not be happy with whatever regime is in power, and you just think, oh, that's so darn tricky, isn't it? But 1 in 5, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of indigenous people.
Folks, you remember that word penultimate? Who would like to ask the second to last question?
Okay, so just listening to all of your stories and kind of going through your book. So what I would like to know, and I'm going to ask it, and it's kind of off topic right now, but it's going to bug me later when I'm actually going through your poems. So what is your favorite poem in the book that you wrote? Can you share it with us, and why? Exactly. I'm like, oh, this is my favorite finger. Here's my favorite toe. No, it's really not that precious to me. That's a really good question.
My favorite is this. Welalin chimigwech, hi hi, lim limt. 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 There's still a soft chain of belonging woven all across the land. That's a poem called Thank You, and it's my favorite because it's where it all starts and where it all ends, right? And I always come back to that and go, oh yeah, right. As long as you know how to say thank you in any language, you'll figure out the rest of it, right? But that's the one. That, and excuse me, I didn't know. but you know. But if I had to pick a favorite, that would be it. Well, thank you. Yeah, so it starts in Mi'kmaq, which is my grandfather's heritage and the territory I was born into, and by treaty law, it's what I identify as belonging to the Listiguj Mi'kmaq First Nation. But I certainly didn't grow up there, and I got relatives there who are third, fourth, fifth cousins. Chimegwech, of course, is from my dad's. Most of my dad's family is Ojibwe, and I can speak a little bit, just because I stole a Pimsleur recording. You know, Pimsleur language. It's a language learning system, and a friend got it out of the library for me, and I pirated a recording to learn Ojibwe because I don't have any elders around to teach me. I'm like, this is the modern age. I'll learn from Pimsleur. I'm down with that. And of course, you know, hi and Limlimt is from the Okanagan people because I spent 2 years out there, and their honor song is just so cool, and they say, the land is beautiful, or sorry, the people are beautiful because the land is beautiful. That's the main line in their honor song, and I'm like, oh, that's it. That's the main line of it, right? Because the land is beautiful, the people are beautiful. Oh, that's a good song because it's true everywhere. So I wanted to honor those four places because I live in, Cree territory. That's the high bit, and yeah, I want to change what we say as a public prayer in the places in Canada where we have a public prayer. Because they're getting rid of doing the Our Father, right? Because they're recognizing, gee, maybe that just doesn't fit with everybody. And so I counted up the words. There's like 55 words in that prayer. And I thought, like, you could say thank you or all my relations, either of those two things, in about 15, 16, 17 languages, and not come up to 55 words. And if you did that if we formalized that as the way we prayed it as a nation, then we would be doing some real acknowledging of what our real history is. Start with the First Nations languages, add in the Second Nations languages, and then all the people who came. Yeah, all the diversities, from the different waves of immigration since then. And why not just, and what word better than either that phrase, all my relations, or if that makes people too nervous because they think we're all going native, people still worry about that, right? I don't know, we're all going to move into wigwams or something. But thank you. Who doesn't say thank you? Everybody has a word for it, so maybe that could be, it's my dream. And maybe one day.
Well, now it's the ultimate. This is the last time that Biggish Worm will read, and we'll invite her to read this.
The last time I'll read today. I just got to say that.
Okay,
just for today, or just for, this session, really. I'll probably go home and read too. I'll read my Twitter because I'm trying to become a cult. Do you guys like Twitter? I love Twitter. Yeah, you got followers. I've got followers. I'm like a cult. It's such a funny thing, and I think, oh, that's very clever of them. There's some clever marketing, right? Because now everybody wants to have followers. Oh man, okay. I'll definitely read that, my Twitter tonight and tweet about this. I'm like a bird. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay. Wood with rabbit. Here silver leaves tip for rain. Married at the scar, two salve trees lean against each other. How we all learn to walk. Well-tuned rock smoothing feet. My feet. I find I watch them, trusting my head to the sky. Wind carries over before we see it. Small boy rabbit, frozen in prayer beneath Indian paintbrushes. What a name. Never have seen brown artists paint with them. Still, tiger lilies don't have tigers. Then again, is that where we went? When those who came stopped respecting our mother, tigers and Indians, gone into flower colors. Old people, young people, mauve and rose. Flaming wildflowers bending over a rabbit at prayer. At need to become only his tail, the light floss of dandelions, uncatchable.
Thank you, Biggest Worm. We'll only read one by a universal Cree philosopher. One word, Indian. One sentence, a woman walking in the woods and what she sees. One paragraph, I think about flowers and people. Peter Pan with no mother. Have people been reduced to flowers and myths? If I was a flower, I wonder what I would be. I like to watch the dandelion seeds blow in the breeze. Now I have to write this. Maybe dandelion was once a person. Stream of consciousness. I think about discovering how things are and how we see them and how they were. I liked how he or she described the silver-tipped leaf toward rain. When leaves flip over, we know the rain is coming, and they are silver underneath. I like the imagery of two trees leaning toward each other. That was soothing. I was in the forest. I could feel the wind and see the tiger lilies, the clouds, the Indian artists, the bunnies, and I thought about the deeper meaning that went everywhere. I thought about the beauty in imagery and the beauty in words. And I thought about how we see the world is different and complex, almost like a fingerprint. We all see things different, yet each is truth. I name this, My Eyes Tell the Truth, even though I might see contradictions. And I asked for their working definition of prayer. Here it is. Prayer is a conversation between me and the Creator. A dialogue, a plea, a request, thanks, and sometimes just talking. Prayer can come in many forms. Like when I light sweetgrass, sage, fungus, or cedar. They pray too, and lift their prayers to the Creator. The Creator hears our prayers, even though sometimes I can't feel it. Prayer is sacred. You are sacred. The blending and sharing of sacred. I don't really know much about how prayer works. I only know it does.
Well, that's beautiful. Again, that's really, really beautiful. How fun to read that piece. It's one that I don't I can probably count on one finger the times I've read that piece in public. And yet, you know, when I hear somebody reacting to it, I think, oh, I could read that more often. It's a nice piece of poetry. But it's quiet, you know, and I think maybe that's why I don't, because it's more for just that kind of, just you look at it,